My family always chuckled at my modest job, unaware that I was quietly building my wealth. At my cousin's birthday celebration, they teased me for not bringing a lavish gift until I revealed my net worth. Their faces went pale. Here's the deal, I always knew my family didn't think much of my career path, but I wasn't prepared for the constant subtle jabs that kept piling up, especially during last Christmas. It all kicked off when my older sister, Lena, made a passing remark about how I should set my sights higher. She didn't say it to my face, but I caught the sharpness in her tone as she spoke to our mom about me. Let me give you some context. I don't have the kind of job that gets people talking. I'm not in tech or medicine or anything my family considers a ticket to success. I work in retail. It's not fancy, I'll admit. My paycheck isn't huge, and I don't get the perks some of my cousins enjoy, but it's reliable, and I've been saving diligently. Saving, something my family doesn't seem to grasp. They act like just getting by isn't enough. You need to chase more or you're failing in their eyes. But that Christmas dinner was the breaking point. It was at my aunt's place, and as always, the conversation turned to careers over the roast and potatoes. Everyone was sharing tales of their amazing jobs. My cousin Marcus, naturally, was the loudest. Marcus works in finance, pulling in big money, always dressed in sharp suits. He's never shy about letting everyone know he's the real deal, while implying others should step up. "Still at that shop, Charles?" Marcus said with a laugh that was a bit too loud, clearly fishing for a reaction. "When are you going to aim for something bigger? You know, a proper career." His smirk was impossible to miss. I brushed it off with a chuckle. What else could I do? But the sly looks and comments kept coming. My cousin Tara jumped in from across the table. "Yeah, you've been at that job forever, right? When's that promotion coming?" I'm fine with some light teasing, family's family, but this was getting uncomfortable. The more they went on, the clearer it became that this wasn't just about my job. It was about how they viewed me. Lena piled on too, suggesting I should start thinking about my future. According to her, people in jobs like mine just don't make it big. I didn't say much back. Honestly, their judgment didn't faze me. I'd grown used to it over time. But what stuck with me was how they looked at me, like I was some puzzle they couldn't solve. That dinner, I noticed something else too. Marcus, in particular, seemed fixated on pointing out what I lacked, what I wasn't doing. It wasn't just me either. He'd take shots at others in the family for not being ambitious enough, but with me, it felt personal. He'd say things like, "You can't keep living like that, man," or "That mindset won't get you far." What stood out was how he'd say it in front of everyone, making sure all eyes were on me. It wasn't just friendly ribbing anymore. It felt like he was trying to put me in my place. I tried to let it slide, but when I went to grab a drink in the living room that night, something caught my eye. On the mantel was a framed photo of Marcus holding his latest bonus check. I'm serious. A check bigger than my yearly salary. I thought maybe he was just showing off or it was a joke, but no, he looked so proud. I could see it in his expression. It wasn't the first time he'd flexed his success like that. At every family gathering, he made sure everyone knew about his latest raise or his shiny new car. And honestly, I wasn't jealous. It was more the way he seemed to expect me to be in awe of his achievements, as if my job somehow lessened his wins. That's what got under my skin. It wasn't about money or status, it was about respect. The next week at another family event, I figured things might cool off after the holidays. Maybe Marcus would ease up on the jabs. But no, he couldn't resist. "So, Charles," he said with a grin, holding up his phone, "still grinding at that retail gig, huh? How's that working out? Must be nice to have all that free time." He barely looked at me, just glanced at the TV, and then Lena joined in. "He's got his savings though, right? Always pinching pennies." "Yeah, probably got a couple grand stashed away," Marcus added, his tone mocking. The worst part, they both turned to me, waiting for me to justify why I wasn't chasing some high-stress, high-paying job like them. The thing is, I didn't owe them an explanation. But sitting there, I couldn't help but think, do they really think I'm that clueless? I just smiled and nodded. Deep down, though, something shifted. I'd been quiet about my choices for too long. They had no idea how much I'd saved or what I'd been working on behind the scenes. That day, I decided they could laugh at my small job for now, but I wasn't going to let them make me feel small forever. They had no clue what was coming. And trust me, they still didn't. Update. I thought I had it under control. I figured I could ignore the jabs, keep my head down, and move forward, but nothing could have prepared me for what went down at Marcus's birthday party. You know the drill. Everyone gathers, brings their fancy gifts, and spends hours talking about their lives. I'd promised myself I wouldn't get sucked into their who's more successful game. I wasn't even that close to Marcus, but the family insisted everyone show up. Still, something felt off the moment I stepped inside. Maybe it was the months of snide remarks about my job, or maybe it was just the vibe of Marcus's house. Sleek furniture, a car out front screaming, "I've made it." I could feel the silent judgment before I even said a word. When I walked in, Lena was already chatting with Tara, their voices carrying over the music and laughter. They greeted me with those overly sweet smiles, but I could tell they were sizing me up. The kind of smile that says, "I'm not judging, but I totally am." I scanned the room, trying to gauge the mood. Marcus was holding court in the center, surrounded by family, showing off his latest splurge, a ridiculously expensive sound system he probably bought just to flaunt. "Charles," Marcus's voice boomed, overly dramatic. "You made it, man. Last one here, busy saving the world or what?" My face warmed, but I kept it cool. "Just didn't want to steal your thunder, you know." "Ha, no chance of that with your job," Marcus shot back, laughing too loudly. I wasn't shocked. I was used to the digs, but I had a feeling this night wouldn't just be about my job. The comments came in waves, and this was shaping up to be one of those nights. Then came the gift situation. During the party, my Aunt Clara started asking everyone what they'd brought for Marcus's birthday. The conversation quickly turned to the price tags on the gifts. It was obvious what was happening. Lena showed up with a pricey bottle of whiskey, and Tara flaunted a fancy smartwatch. All gifts that screamed money. It didn't take long for Marcus to start commenting on the value of the presents. He stood up, acting like a king, and waved his hand over the pile of gifts by the cake. "All right, let's see what we've got here. You know I'm all about quality," he said, scanning the pile. Then his eyes landed on me. "Charles, what you bring me this year?" he asked, smirking, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "Let me guess, a keychain from the dollar store?" My stomach twisted. Was he really this desperate to see me flop? Everyone turned to me, the tension thick. My heart raced, but I stayed calm. I didn't want to cause a scene, but this was exactly what I'd feared, my job and my gift becoming a public spectacle. "I went for something practical," I said, holding my ground. "Got you a nice leather journal, nothing over the top, just something useful." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "A journal," he repeated, his voice dripping with mockery. "Wow, Charles, you really know how to make a guy feel special." Tara jumped in, breaking the silence. "I mean, I was expecting something a bit grander, you know, like a real gift. But I guess not everyone's got the same budget." She glanced at Marcus's pile of extravagant gifts, then back at me, her tone sharp. I took a deep breath. I'd heard this all before, but the way they were ganging up tonight felt different. I was done with their game. They didn't get that it wasn't about the gift's price. I'd chosen something thoughtful, something that mattered. But they didn't care about that. As the night went on, the jabs kept coming. They kept questioning why I wasn't giving bigger gifts, why I wasn't earning more, why I wasn't on their success track. I started to wonder, why is it always about money with them? Why does it have to be about the price tag and not the thought? By the end of the night, as people started leaving, something in me snapped. I couldn't keep standing there, taking their shots. If they wanted to play the who's winning game, I was ready to change the rules. They had no idea what was coming. I wasn't going to let them laugh at me anymore. They were about to find out they'd been wrong all along. Final update. After that night, I knew it was time. They were too comfortable in their bubble, thinking their success made them better than me. But the truth was, I'd been quietly thriving. And the longer I stayed silent, the more they'd assume their way was the only way. The next family gathering was just around the corner. Another casual get-together at my aunt's house, one of those events everyone showed up for without much thought. But this time, I wasn't just bringing a gift. I was done being their punching bag. I spent the week before planning. Should I call them out directly, point out their arrogance? No, I had a better plan, one that would let my results speak for themselves. I walked in, already bracing for the usual comments about my dead-end, job, and when are you going to get serious? The tension had been building for months, and I knew they were waiting for me to slip up. But instead of biting at their bait, I stayed calm. I kept quiet, letting their chatter swirl around me, acting unbothered. Inside, though, I was ready for the moment. As expected, the career talk kicked in. Marcus led the charge, bragging about his latest raise. Lena followed, gushing about her booming business. Everyone joined in, boasting about their wins like it was a contest to outshine each other. Everyone except me. I stayed silent at first, just nodding along, letting their voices fill the room. The usual how's work questions came, and Marcus predictably couldn't resist. "So, Charles," he said, smirking, "how's retail life? Still ringing up groceries?" I took a slow breath, keeping my voice steady. It's going fine, been saving, investing, things are coming together. That's when the snickers started. Tara muttered something about how saving wouldn't get me far. Clara, always subtle but cutting, smiled and said, "You know, if you'd pushed harder in your career, you wouldn't need to scrape by like that." I could feel them all leaning in, waiting for me to crack. It was time. I could have let it go. I could have let them keep thinking I was just scraping by, but no. They needed to see the truth. Without a word, I pulled out my phone. I unlocked it slowly, making sure everyone was watching. Then I opened my investment portfolio. The numbers weren't loud or showy, but they were more than enough. "Here," I said calmly, placing the phone on the table. "This is where my money's been going. It's not about what I earn, it's about how I handle it." The room went silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. Their eyes were locked on the screen, their faces draining of color as they processed the numbers. Lena spoke first, her voice unsteady. "Wait, how much is that?" I shrugged, leaning back casually. "Enough." Marcus tried to laugh it off, but it fell flat. He cleared his throat, looking around awkwardly, unsure how to respond. The others just stared, their confidence crumbling. Tara, usually quick with a jab, was speechless. Her mouth opened, then closed, her face a mix of shock and unease. Clara kept glancing at the screen, her usual smugness replaced by confusion. No one knew what to say. Marcus finally mumbled, "I didn't know you were that serious about this." It was a slow realization for them, coming to terms with the fact that I wasn't the failure they'd assumed. The quiet guy with the small job had built something bigger than their flashy careers. I wasn't making their mistakes. I didn't need to broadcast my success. I didn't need to gloat. The numbers spoke for themselves, and the silence that followed was louder than any words. Marcus, the one who always had a comeback, looked like he'd been hit. His face was pale, his usual swagger gone, replaced by stunned silence. I wasn't trying to shove it in their faces, but it felt good. It felt right. For the first time in a long time, I realized I didn't need their approval. I was done playing their game. As they sat there, speechless, I stood to leave. I didn't need their congratulations or their recovery. I had what I needed: self-respect, independence, and peace of mind. And as I walked out, I knew they'd never see me the same way again.